Hello, my name is Joshua Demetri. I'm a Principal Solutions Architect at Valiantys, and I'm here to talk to you about Atlassian Rovo and how to apply it to real-world use cases. Rovo is an AI product from Atlassian that aims to kind of connect everything across the entire organization to create a place and a platform for building AI value on top of our processes. So I want to start by showing this diagram that we're looking at here to talk a little bit about how Rovo fits into the architecture of kind of an enterprise organization and where the connection points are to different parts of our tooling. So we've got all the Atlassian products here on the left. We've got everything kind of rolling up through Atlassian Analytics so that we can get some reporting on top of everything. This is really just our Atlassian cloud platform as we may use it today. And then in the middle, we've got our Atlassian Rovo kind of box here and Forge as well. Now, Rovo is that AI tool that has kind of different sections in it, right? So we've got Rovo Search, which allows us to kind of have like a single search box experience to get information across the entire organization. Chat is kind of like a chatbot style of experience using Rovo. And then agents is where we can really build custom tooling, kind of use Rovo as a platform for building AI value and tooling on top of our Atlassian cloud products. And it rolls into Forge, which is the developer platform for Atlassian Cloud. So if you haven't heard of Forge before, it's essentially what you would use to build any sort of custom tooling, plugins, anything that you kind of want to put out on the marketplace or just use as internal tooling for your organization. You would build that in this developer platform called Forge. And Forge and Rovo are going to work together here to allow us to connect this AI value to everything across the entire organization. So when we look at kind of the mindset of an AI transformation or cloud transformation that utilizes AI very heavily, we're going to be using Rovo and Forge together to make sure that everything that we're doing is not just in a silo where it's just all the data that we have already in the Atlassian products, but we want to also connect to the data outside of the Atlassian platform to things like you see on the right over here. So things like custom applications, integrations with external systems. We've got reporting dashboards that you might already have. Maybe you've got like a data lake solution that's already got a whole bunch of reporting on top of it. We want to bring that in as an external data source. We want to have access to that information from the AI tooling that we're building, right? So we're looking at basically implementing AI across the entire organization and utilizing the data that we already have and the place that work is already happening in Jira and Confluence and our Atlassian cloud platform. So we want to connect all of these things together. Forge allowing us to kind of build some custom connections to that data, but Rovo really being the driver here, where Rovo is going to allow us to kind of build AI tooling and AI value on top of all of this data as a collective data set. So Rovo has this notion of connectors as well. So even beyond just having to build our own custom connections here, like we see with Forge, Rovo also has a list of tools that just out of the box you can integrate with the AI tooling that Rovo provides. So you can kind of go to the Atlassian documentation and find that list. But essentially, Rovo is aiming to connect all of the information across the whole organization into a single platform where we can build AI value on top of it. And the benefit of doing that with Rovo, aside from other AI platforms and AI tooling that you can find out there, is that first of all, it's just deeply integrated with the Atlassian platform, which if that's already where your work is happening, it's already where your databases or your knowledge bases are stored. So you've got Jira and Confluence being used heavily already. Well, now we've got that AI value being injected directly into the place where you're already handling that work and you already have that knowledge base. And so we don't have to do extra work to get it integrated into that location. It's just already there, already has knowledge of it. And the other huge benefit here is the fact that Rovo follows the same kind of compliance and security measures that the rest of the Atlassian platform does. So if you have trust for the Atlassian platform, you kind of already have trust for Rovo in the sense that it follows the same standards and the same practices as the rest of the Atlassian cloud platform. So you can kind of be aware of the fact that, if you're already using Atlassian cloud, Rovo is using those same practices. And from a security and compliance standpoint, that's a huge benefit over going through the whole process to approve a whole new set of tooling for AI somewhere else. And it's already deeply integrated, provides these connections to the external tools, and it already follows those same security and compliance practices. So we could spend a lot of time talking about all the individual features of Rovo and talking about how to build things in Rovo. But really what's most valuable, I think, here is to talk about how we can tell the story of AI transformation in context of the Atlassian cloud platform and utilizing Rovo as the driver for that. So, I want to jump over to this diagram I've got on this Miro board, which is essentially going to be outlining one of the stories that we've been able to tell with our customer use cases as we've been working through kind of building out processes that are enhanced with Rovo and with AI tooling. And essentially what we've done is we've started by, and I can kind of zoom into this section over here, by outlining for, in this case, it's a laptop manufacturer. So, really could be any use case, but let's say that it's a laptop manufacturer that's came out of talking with a customer that essentially wanted to do some market research on everything that's out there in the market currently to help them plan out the creation of a new product they want to build. And we kind of created this demoable version around laptop manufacturing. And we've outlined the whole process that they would typically follow for the creation of this new product. And that's doing some market research. It is kind of creating some documentation around that market research, using that to kind of do some analysis on that and determine, what's the actual best path forward for maybe in this case, a new laptop that in a certain price bracket actually fulfills a niche that will have some market behind it to have some demand. And then what it does from there is let's say we'd go from that point and our team would start to build out different templates for documentation and Confluence, build out Jira projects to actually track all the work that's happening, create timelines and schedules around all of the tasks that are in those Jira projects, so on and so forth. We kind of have this planning process happening. What we wanted to do from there is kind of take that process that we laid out and then use AI as a force multiplier and an accelerator for that process. So we always start from the perspective of kind of determining what is the best process to follow. We get the process kind of ironed out, and then we kind of add AI into that process to enhance it. So along the way in our chart, we have these numbers to dictate whenever there's a new agent that we've built essentially with Rovo. So we've built agents and other tooling with Rovo and AI to kind of enhance this process, where actually basically everything you see here, all these solid lines on the diagram, are now automated processes that you basically just hit a button and it goes and does the market research. It creates a plan off that market research. It has timelines already kind of established and basically gets you from nothing to a boilerplate of like, here is actual like real actionable steps to take for the creation of this new product. And now you can just go and kind of be editing and updating those values rather than starting from nowhere. So it takes the process that could take weeks of doing all this research, all this planning, all the creation of these projects and different documentation that you have to create to kind of start the process of building this new laptop or this new product of any kind. And it shortens that down, right? So this is kind of one use case that we followed of, for the manufacturing use case here, in this case for laptops, but really for anything. Here is the process, and let's outline kind of what that process should look like and how Rovo and AI can be injected to that process as a force multiplier for it. So I want to show you a little bit of what that looks like in the tool. So essentially we've got this application that you can pull up on the Confluence site, and I'll give it like a price point for a laptop, let's say 1,000. And it takes a while to kind of go through and run because it's doing a lot of things to that market research. It takes a lot less time than actually manually going through all the documents, right? That could take weeks versus this will take probably a couple minutes. And I'll let that run in the background. I've got one already pulled up that I can show you. The result of this and is really that market research documentation. So I've got this competitive landscape analysis. It's basically just a long document. It's a page in Confluence here of all of the information that it was able to go out and find, both from just the broader knowledge from the AI models that it's using behind the scenes, but also from our own documentation and kind of like merging those two things together to show what is our understanding and also the rest of the world's understanding of this current space, like of the sub $1,000 laptop space and what's already out there. And then the next thing it'll do is create this market analysis where it's actually going to give me some suggestions for here is a niche that you could fit into that actually has some demand behind it. Maybe less of the other competitors are actually fitting in this niche price of this price point, right? So these are like the recommended specs for a laptop for the hardware and software that might be a good way to kind of create your own niche in that area, right? So this wouldn't get us all the way to the point where we're already ready to go and build every detail of this product. But what it does is it gets us from nothing to a really good starting point of everything being laid out where we can go from there. And actually behind the scenes, this tool has also automatically taken this information and created a project with timelines that, while the timelines are obviously not populated with our own timelines yet, and we could build a tooling that did that and we would do that for a customer. But we've got a starting point now where it's actually created tasks and epics and kind of like all of the structure for the project. So everything's already planned out of like, here are the things that we would need to do in order to accomplish this creation of this new laptop product. And then we can go in here and start changing around the dates and set up our own timelines. And basically what this does is the weeks of the lead up time that it takes to do all this research and setting up of this project before going into a meeting and kind of like ironing out every little detail, kind of getting it solidified and starting the project. We can essentially go right into a planning meeting with all this information already started up, kind of just be editing what's already here, and we can kick off that project very quickly because we've gone from zero to having a really good structure in very little time. So that is going to be kind of one of the stories we've told, right? Just this process of working with the customer, seeing what is the process that they need to follow without AI, like what are they doing today? What do they need to be doing to accomplish this goal? And then taking Rovo and AI and kind of adding it as a layer on top that's a force multiplier and an accelerator for that process. So taking an already standard good process that exists, utilizing the tools in the way that the tools are designed to be utilized, like Jira and Confluence here, and then using Rovo as that layer to be a force multiplier and accelerator to everything that's happening in that process. Now, one more example I want to show is one that we're actually currently working through with a customer where right now this is kind of an example it's actually for traffic reporting. So let's say you're driving down the road and you call into a call center and say, hey, I found this thing is broken, like this traffic light isn't working, there was an accident over here, kind of reporting on these traffic events. And then that is going to be translated into a kind of like set of events and like a list of events that we want to be tracking somewhere. So in this case of traffic reporting, the goal is like, hey, 5 different people might have actually reported on the same event. And we don't want them to have to like go in and type in all the details and everything. This might just be like an audio recording of a phone call that somebody made. It could be like a chat that somebody sent. It could be, some sort of just like unstructured data for here are all of the different events that have happened that now we need to do something with without having to comb through every single one. And we have an AI process that's going behind the scenes, kind of transcribing all the audio coming in from calls, taking any texts that were sent in, finding location, severity, and nature of all those traffic events, and then collating that down to a kind of collapsed list of here are all the actual events that happened, and here's how many people reported each of those events. And then here's a summary and an analysis of, based off all of those events, what's like the current state of traffic in a certain area for a certain time frame. And what we're doing with this use case is actually we're adapting it for defect management. So we're working with a customer right now to manage the defects on all the products that they're developing as they're manufacturing those new products. So people are going out and testing these products, and as they find defects with them, they're reporting them with like maybe an audio message, maybe a picture, maybe it's just a text box that they fill in. But these like low barrier to entry ways to report on defects that they're tracking. And this AI process is then taking all those defects and creating something like this. This is our traffic reporting example, and this is the dashboard that we have built off of that. So you can imagine for the defect management example, this would be all the defects on those products. And you can see in this list that like I've got this event for a hazard affecting multiple directions, 3 reports on that particular hazard. So 3 different people have reported this in various different ways, and it's created a single event off that report. It actually gives a summary down here in this case for, like a news reporter going and wanting to kind of like talk about this current state of traffic. And we've got a dashboard off of that with charts and everything else like that. So really just showing how we are telling the use case story, how we're building this story around this kind of architecture structure that we're trying to create, right? We're trying to build something that can be utilized by the customer as a way to take AI, put it into their process, and accelerate everything they're already doing, but also to lower that barrier of entry so that somebody doesn't have to go and fill out, a dozen different fields to report on a defect. They're able to just use a audio recording. It'll be transcribed and kind of put into the system correctly by the AI tooling. So, hopefully you can kind of see how we are starting to tell that story. We have a lot of clients we're working with doing this and basically just taking, Rovo and AI and using that to fill out the use case, fill out the process, and accelerate it using the AI tooling.